I wanted to do an emergency pod, but consider this the emergency podcast session because, in my opinion, the single best bit of reporting, news, and comedy to yet come out of this 2020 election has finally dropped. I've been waiting on this one for a while. It comes courtesy of The Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg, probably our favorite human being on this show. I think he really holds the record as someone who probably warms my heart the greatest out of anyone who we've ever talked to on this show. But this is a bit of bombshell, earth-shattering, and I'm surely election-changing news that Donald Trump does not give a fuck about our beautiful dead soldiers from World War I.
What?
And it goes from there. This warrants, we've got experts in our corner. We've got the full Chapo lineup here. Sans Virgil. I'm going to go through this whole piece, but just starting off the top with you, Derek and Daniel, as our foreign policy expert and historian. What do you make of the loser and sucker gate, as I'm calling it?
I think it pretty clearly reflects the reality that since the creation of the all-volunteer force in 1973, we've essentially established a janissary class of soldiers that are totally disconnected in any way, shape, or form from our nation's elite. I mean, from Trump to Samantha Power, right? So there's there's generations of soldiers who essentially are poor from the South or West or grew up literally outside of a military base, and they're totally disconnected from American society, which is why someone like Trump would say something like this. He doesn't even know, it doesn't even enter his mind. He doesn't know any soldiers or things like that. And it's also, as you guys say all the time, it doesn't make a difference at all. It's just going to totally have absolutely no effect, but it is really funny.
I was stunned for a man like Donald Trump, who has always put others before himself and held, workers and the downtrodden in such respect, for him to say these things. It shatters my worldview. I don't know how to rebuild and try to make sense of things at this point.
I think that we're missing a lot of context here. I've been to diners in the Midwest. I've gotten beaten up in a lot of diners because I'm going out to patrons and bothering them and asking them if they thought the Democratic Party lost them when they got rid of Tom Daschle. I'm eating people's fries. I'm generally behaving and imitating the voice of John Leguizamo in the past.
I like to do my police, cruising cream, playing 3-car money on these crazy streets, straight hustler. I'm all a scam man, I'm in it so low to the flow, pick the pocket on a midget.
Part of an assignment that I have for the Atlantic. But the thing is, when you talk to these Midwestern voters, people who have had their fingers trapped in Chinese finger traps, people who are stuck in giant tires because their hero is the Michelin Man, real Americans, not hoity-toity media consumers, they support what Donald Trump has said about this because they, like him, think the Austrians should have stewardship of the Balkans. That was, if you remember, when he came down the escalator, he was coming out against the Black Hand. He was saying that Austrians have a blood right to rule over there. And I'm really amazed by people not catching on to that.
Damn it, I had a whole bit about this, and Felix beat me to it, and he did it better. But I just really wanted someone to explain to him in the helicopter, well, okay, so there was this small group of Serbian nationalists, and it's very important. It set off a whole thing. This one weird, they were all like 19 and insane incels, by the way, and it was a whole world war because of that. It is a fascinating thing to start with World War I, the most stupid, incomprehensible, burn after reading war you could possibly imagine.
Well, that's why he was baffled, because he doesn't have the ideological.
It's a baffling war.
He doesn't have any ideological filter, because Trump really is proof that the powerful, they don't believe any of this shit. They know the world is like we see it. It's an abattoir of exploitation, and they just think that that's good because they're the ones doing the exploiting. That's why, as Amber points out, Financial Times, which is for the ruling class, is pretty unvarnished and relatively like Marxist in its analysis, because they're talking to each other. And
material
Trump,
world.
all Trump has is he doesn't have the part of the brain to lie to the fucking rubes. which is what the rest of them have beaten into them at birth, and that has slowly been dissolved by dang Cheeto dust and syphilis spider sheets by now. So he's just saying this, and I think my favorite part of it is that he said it in front of John Kelly, apparently.
Yep.
Whose son died in Iraq. Because like a guy in that position, as they're saying, like the ruling class is totally detached from the military, except for guys who went through the military to get into power. And that means those guys actually believe this shit to some degree. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't have joined the military. They would have done something that would have given them like more money and more direct power earlier than like grinding up through the ranks, in the army or something, or the Marines. So Kelly believes this shit. And so he thinks his son died for a reason. And here's the guy he fought on behalf of, representing the class of people that he fought on behalf of and is now a minion of, telling him to his face, your kid is a fucking loser and an idiot and a sucker because this is all fake.
I will say,
fascinating, though, because it took him a while to initially, with the I don't get it, what's in it for them comment. He was like, oh, he must have been speaking to the heroism and the selflessness and the altruism. It's like, so even the idea, like, first of all, it took him so long to be like, I think he might not respect what my son did. Like, that just proves that, like, an article like this won't be taken. It's not like the troops are going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's not an indictment of intelligence or anything. It's just that people want to believe the people they like would like them. That's just human nature.
On the World War I issue, Amber, which you brought up, I would love to do a poll of the people who read this article and got really mad at it and see how many of them still think he was talking about World War II.
Yes, Derek.
Yes.
I had the exact same thing when I first saw this headline. It was like Trump refused to visit the U.S. military cemetery in France. I was immediately thinking it was like the Normandy Beaches one, and I was like, ooh, yikes! Like even for Trump, that's a bit far. And then as soon as I found out it was like World War I was like, oh fuck it, this is funny as hell because everyone, I guarantee you're exactly right. Almost everyone who's mad at this is just thinking about World War II, and what I like about this, like we're gonna read the piece because like the details in it are funnier than anything that you like. It's like pure duck soup. It's pure Marx Brothers. But like the larger meta thing that's funny is that like if you're president, like the barest minimum thing you have to do of our civic norms that must be observed is loving and respecting our honored fallen dead. Our soldiers who died in wars for fighting for our freedom or whoever's freedom World War I was a consequence of.
Bosnian national self-determination.
I really pray for you if you don't see the honor in fighting the war of cousins and uncles. So, nephew against uncle, cousin against cousin, family friend against family friend. The most important war in human history.
But what I love so much about this story is that this is like I feel like so many people have been waiting for something like this of such a primal violation of our kind of civic religion and codes of behavior for our leaders to so violently just stick his fucking finger in it. And just fucking stumble into the country club like Rodney Dangerfield and Caddyshack and just start asking people's wives if they've ever made $16 the hard way, except it's a war widow instead of a golf person, And like I saw this story and I just want to say I immediately thought this is it. There is simply no way the Republican Party or Donald Trump supporters or Fox News can possibly get out of this. There's no way, for instance, they'll just say this is a hoax and move on. Or just, even better, just say, actually, Joe Biden said that, and then everyone will forget about it by a day later.
Or more likely say, what's the Atlantic? Jeffrey who?
Well, I mean,
Fox News trashed their own reporter. They spent a whole day basically like tossing their own reporter under the bus when she confirmed some of this stuff.
Well,
it was amazing.
I mean, the Goldberg's thing does rely on anonymous sources, and you can sort of read through the lines guessing who those anonymous sources are. But then, like, Fox's debunking of those anonymous sources relied on their own anonymous sources, and it's very clear, like, what Jeffrey Goldberg in the Atlantic is doing here with like the timing of this is that, you know, like this is supposed to be like a, if not an October surprise, then like a large bullet loaded in the chamber aimed at, like, you know, getting him out of the White House. That's not to say I don't believe every single word of what's essentially being alleged here, because even outside of these new revelations, there's already so much on the record with Trump, particularly what he said about John McCain and George H.W. Bush's military careers. Like, if you think it's unlikely that he would say the things alleged here, then, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. But it's Jeffrey Goldberg's involvement of this that adds just another layer of meta comedy, because, you know, he is, you know, so puffed up on himself about, like, you know, Donald Trump simply doesn't understand what it's like to serve a nation or volunteer to serve a foreign nation that you're not a member of as well, at least as far as Jeffrey Goldberg is concerned. But I mean, like,
where's the parade for the prison guards?
But I mean,
He's just like, I love the fact, though, that he has been reduced to a page 6 columnist. Like, that undignified fucking position is suited to him.
it's hot
Like, no one
goss.
believes him. It comes off like fucking goss. It's probably true, or at least largely true, and no one fucking cares because no one respects you, and they don't think any of this matters because it doesn't.
And Amber, I think that's an amazing point. That's something I thought about a lot. How the liberal thing about Trump is often like, let's not stoop to his level. Let's not go low like he goes low. Let's go high. Let's be better than him. But you can't help but play the meta of the champion. And the meta is acting like a gossipy bitch. How do you take down the media bitch? You act like Liz Smith. Not the political consultant, but the columnist.
Yes.
That's what, like Maggie Haberman has been a reporter for what, like 20, 30 years? Like a fucking long time. And she's written some huge stories. She's broken some huge things. But just because of what the meta is now, because of who the president is, all her stories are like, you won't believe what Hope Hicks said about fucking Craig Shue.
But they don't have the chops of a Liz Smith. They don't have the
No.
chops of a page 6 writer.
But just to the author of the story before I start reading it, Jeffrey Goldberg, like, it just the irony here is also really funny, because is there anyone who genuinely views the U.S. military and the people who serve in it as bigger suckers than Jeffrey Goldberg, considering his career in war reporting and, let's just say, intelligence massaging? Because, I mean, like, he was happy to send thousands to their deaths in the war in Iraq based on his own erroneous reporting. And does he tell himself that the people who believed him aren't suckers, or that he isn't a sucker? I mean, how does he square that in his head?
Well, I mean, this was the deal, I think, that was made when the military went, like, volunteer in the 70s. It was that the elites would be able to basically trade, like, their sort of genuflection to the troops who they don't really give a shit about in favor of not having to really serve in the military at all, which is, you know, throughout most of American history, the elite actually did in some sense serve, if not meaningfully, it served in the military. And so what's so interesting about Trump is he's just tearing the mask off that in every way, shape, or form. So it leads it up to, like, liberal scolds who, like you said, throughout all of their actual actions have demonstrated they couldn't give less of a shit about the people who actually go and fight America's wars to then scold him. And it's just totally ridiculous, and just another indication that sort of the norms of this era are coming to an end, but the new world has yet to be born.